Okay, hi, my name is Kaoru Imajo from Japan Fashion Week, and actually this is my sixth time in Hong Kong, and I really love Hong Kong because of the city, because of the buildings, because of the nature, because of the food, also all the fashion stores. So I would really love to be here for the Hong Kong Fashion Design Week. And so I will be moderating with two of these experts, Mr. Phillip Lim and Mr. Kazufumi Otsuka. And so let me warm up this session with some quick questions with you guys. First of all, Phillip-san, how do you think of fashion, Hong Kong and this event?
Thank you guys for being here and having me here. I was crossing the bridge. Actually, my friend Tina's here, and we're coming from New York. But when we cross over that bridge, when your heart starts to race, you get sweaty palms. It becomes emotional. It feels like kind of coming home. I didn't grow up here, but in the end, the roots are so deep. It's such a privilege to be here and to rediscover Hong Kong, and I'm grateful. Thank you.
Thank you. And Otsuka-san, I know it's his first time in Hong Kong, and we arrived here Sunday and walked around for maybe 4 hours to see the stores. And just tell me your first impression about Hong Kong and this event, please.
そうですね、いろいろ歩いてみたんですけれども、街にとってもエネルギーがあって、あとたくさん商業施設があって、そこも人がたくさんいて、本当にファッション市場の、大きくなりそうな可能性を秘めた街だなっていうのは第一印象で思いました。
So I walked around the city of Hong Kong for many hours, and I felt so much energy from the cities. And then also when I visited all those like a commercial retail store, the facilities and like shopping malls, it's like they're all packed with like so many people. And so I thought this the Hong Kong is a very promising fashion market and going forward, and that's the impression I got.
Thank you. And can you also tell me about the impression of the 10 designers? I know that you were looking closely around the details about the clothes last night.
10アジアンデザイナーズ、日本も含めアジアいろんな国をまとめたデザイナーを選出するというアワードを初めて見たんですけれども、本当にとってもいい企画だなと思いまして、東京のデザイナーもいつかここに選ばれたいと思うような素晴らしいアワード企画だったと思います。なのでまた、東京ではそんなにまだ知られてないものではあるので、早速東京に戻ったらみんなにこういういいアワードがあるよっていうのを伝えていきたいなと思いました。
So I thought like this award or this program itself was like wonderful because you were choosing the view of like a designer from all the Asian countries, of course, including Japan. And I guess, this is such an excellent award. So I'm sure like, some of the designers back in Tokyo or like in Japan, of course, would like to be chosen as one of them in the future. But unfortunately, this award itself is not so well known in Japan. So therefore, as soon as I go home, I go back to Japan, I'd like to share this information with all the designers.
Thank you. So let's get into the main theme about Fashion Week. So we'll get back to Phillip-san. So as perspective of a fashion designer, what do you think consists of a successful Fashion Week?
Yeah, thank you for that question. And again, I only speak from someone who participates in the core Fashion Week. I think impact, the word impact. Whatever your narrative is, however you want to reinvent yourself, however you want to establish yourself, what is your impact? That impact ranges from what you're showing, the story you want to tell, the models you cast, the location you present in, the people you invite. It all really matters on the impact you'll make and who you will inspire. In the end of the day, nothing replaces fashion shows and fashion weeks because it's a beautiful community that we all come together in hopes of discovery in hopes of inspiring each other, connecting, to continue the conversations and share the dream. So I think that the community makes it successful, and your impact to your narrative.
Thank you. And that being said, so in September, you did your fashion show in 4 years.
Yeah.
How did you decide to do that? And were there any meanings to the venues or the places that you chose or anything?
Ooh, I still get very emotional when I speak about September. I set the stage for you. Pre-pandemic, I was already having doubts about what Fashion Week meant. Why were we spending so much money on putting out a show for 15 minutes if you're lucky, but majority 8 minutes so that people won't complain. Showgoers won't complain because they're too in a hurry to get somewhere. And at the end of the day, it's so discouraging because you have to imagine our teams, not just about designers, but the seamstresses, the pattern makers, the whole entire team, a community puts their heart on their sleeve to really show what they're proud of. And I was doubting all of it. Fast forward, things happen, things uncomfortable, but it's also gave us a pause to re-examine the purpose of fashion shows and Fashion Week. And I'm gonna tell you, after 4 years of losing it all, literally losing it all, it never felt more important than to have a show. Because the show is 15 minutes of pure silence in a world that's filled with noise, in a world that's filled with data, in a world that's just like one person outdoing the other, in a world where we try to opportunize everything. And speaking to my fellow designers here today, I've met so many of them that I'm so honored to meet because they represent the future of fashion. Faces that look like mine, but the young generations, which is so courageous. It's important to understand that when we do a show, it's our privilege of having 15 minutes where it's our vision. It's not marketed towards you. It's not translated by marketers. It's not like diced up and spit out where it becomes just so robotic and so data-driven. It's purely from our hearts. And I think that you can replace that because at the end of the day, this industry is so powerful, so important, so huge. But guess where it starts? From a simple idea, from the heart. And anything that you guys are participating today started with a designer's heart, started with a simple idea of just wanting to put something out there. And how can you take this away? I think that in the end, I was taught early on that creativity creates business and business affords creativity. Then they go hand in hand. So without that show, without that 15 minutes of pure creativity, what business do you have? So that's how I feel.
Thank you so much. And so, from a journalist perspective, Otsuka-san, what do you think consists of a successful fashion week?
ですね、参加するブランドがまずビジネス的なメリットを感じられるかどうかが一番だと思っております。単純に日本でファッションショーをやろうと思うと、大体日本円で700万円から1000万円ぐらいかかるというのが大体一般的な金額なので、それやっぱり中小のデザイナーにとってはかなりの大金になりますから、しっかりそのお客さんバイヤーさんが足を運んでくれるかどうかであったりとか、あとは、海外日本じゃない国外に向けてちゃんと自分のブランドをアピールすることができるかっていうのがしっかりそういう環境が整っていて、東京であれば東京のファッションウィーク目指したいっていうそういう場所になっているかっていうのがやはり成功しているかそうでないかの、分かれ目なのかなというふうには思ってます。
I think, first of all, when it comes to the Fashion Week, it has to be the beneficial for the brands who participate in the Fashion Week. I'm talking about business-wide. Because, as for, upcoming small designers, probably, to just, host one fashion show, it would cost 7 million to like 10 million Japanese yen. So it's a large sum of money for some of like young upcoming designers. So therefore, like being part of this fashion week has to be worth for those like designers. Whether like buyers are really coming to the show and like watch the show. That's one thing. And then also, like, whether there's like valid platform that for the designer to actually showcase their like their brand towards overseas the audience, not just limited to like let's say Japan or the mother country. So therefore, I guess whether it makes sense for the brand to be part of this like fashion week, whether that's a Tokyo Fashion Week or other country. I think that sort of determines the successful the fashion week or not.
Okay, so another question for Otsuka-san. So we all think and feel that each fashion week has like a distinct style and similarities and differentials, but how do you feel the differences of the fashion week of the Western Fashion Week and the Eastern Fashion Week?
最近の傾向ですと、やっぱ各都市のスケジュール、4大ファッションウィークと言われているニューヨーク、ロンドン、パリ、ミラノのスケジュールが、かなりギュッとして参加ブランドが多くなっているので、資金力のあるLVMH グループのブランドであったりとか、そういうブランドのショーがやっぱりメインコンテンツとして人をどんどん集める、で有名人セレブリティとかを呼んでどんどん集めるっていうような傾向が続いているんですけれども、それは各国共通しているところかなと思います。一方でその若手ブランドがそのスケジュールに埋もれてしまうっていうのがちょっと最近の課題かなと思ってまして、ロンドンのようにその若手ブランドに焦点を当てた企画みたいなものは本当に最近特に重要なんではないかなというふうに思っております。
So let's talk about, I guess, the western side of the fashion week in the so-called four major cities like New York, London, Paris, and Milan. And actually, all those cities, the schedule is like super packed these days. And I guess, because like a larger number of the brands are now participating, and so therefore the schedule is like very tight. And then also the many brands, they have like so much financial backing. Like for example, brands under the LVMH group. So like they can actually spend a lot of money and attract, large traffic volume, including celebrities. That's something like I see, like, I think that's something common among those cities. And so therefore, oftentimes upcoming young designers are buried or like, not really being seen because of this like, due to this like tight schedule and like bigger brands. But I think in that sense that London is doing a great job because they have this program. They're really targeting younger designers. I think that's a great thing that I observed.
Thank you. And so Philip-san, this morning there were someone talked about the Louis Vuitton show happening in Hong Kong, but so Philip-san, how do you think of like as a designer doing a fashion show outside of your hometown? Like I know that you've been in Fashion Week in New York, but like maybe in Hong Kong or possibly in Tokyo or somewhere else than New York, how do you think?
Oh, it's a privilege. 5 years into we're a brand born in New York, New York bred basically. 5 years into the brand, we had the honor of showing in the watchtowers in Beijing. We showed in Seoul Fashion Week. I did all the men's in Paris Fashion Week. I kept the women's in men's. I kept the women's in New York, and in the future, I want to take it elsewhere. I think we're such a global community, and it's like we're so connected, and the idea to have the privilege to go to different cities and countries to really share this experience is something that's so invaluable, because not only are you exposed to a more local audience, but you also gain the perspective of why we're all different but similar. It really informs the way you then rethink about your collections, how you create clothes, who your audience is, and understanding that your audience, like my audience in New York, she and he exist in Paris, she and he exist in Tokyo, she and he exist in Hong Kong, she and he exist in London. It really helps to galvanize and cement more clearly who you serve as a brand, as a design house. So that type of education is the type that I wish all designers and all creatives and beyond creatives too, the whole ecosystem of a brand gets to experience. And that way we can understand each other more and we can service each other better.
And after the pandemic, I think many things has shifted digitally. I know that New York Fashion Week is doing really digital things. Do you think that these kind of changes helps not only the fashion shows, but do you think these kind of changes help also the brands, designers?
Absolutely. Again, what we learn from these years is the reinforcement that not one size fits all. When I started, I didn't know even what I was doing. I just wanted to make clothes that friends of mine could afford, I could afford. I was like becoming more professional. So I'm like, okay, I want to make clothes for myself, for people like me. And, along the way, we're like, experts would come in and be like, you should do this, you should do that, you should do this, you should do that. Fast forward to today, what you should do is do what's right for your brand. What's right for your size, what's right for your business model, what's right for your story. It works. In the end, there's a slice for everyone in this beautiful industry. We don't all have to be like having it all. And what does having it all mean? You should reframe that question. What does it mean to have it all? I was talking to Chen last night. We were sitting at dinner I was lucky to be his table mate. And we're like, if you could close your eyes, what makes you happy? And the answer was the same. In our studios, working with our teams. And at the end of the day, what makes you happy as a brand? What do you want? What is enough? And if you want more, go for it. Go for it and structure yourself so you can succeed. But I think, again, what we have emerged with the next step with technology is you can actually be yourself. You could be your own brand. And there's no right, wrong way of doing it all. You know what I mean? You should do what is natural to your own brand's health, evolution, and what makes you happy, your own story, and establish that.
Thank you. So time's running up, and maybe the last question to Otsuka-san. Except the major fashion week, do you have any cities in mind that you think that have the potential to rise?
ですね、まさにさっき香港デザインウィーク開催するというアナウンスもあったと思うんですけども、香港とかあと、台湾とかその辺の国のカルチャーが特に面白いなというふうに期待しています。もちろん東京、上海、韓国、ソウルとかも面白いんですけれども、これから香港であったり台湾が盛り上がってくると、さらにアジアが一体となってより世界に向けて魅力を発信していけるんじゃないかなと思ってます。でそれぞれの都市で、海外に向けて発信していくのも当然いいとは思うんですが、今回の本当に10デザイナーズのような企画で、アジアで連携して世界に向けて魅力を発信して有能才能のある若手のデザイナーを発信していくっていうのにとても可能性を感じました。
I think, probably Hong Kong and Taiwan would be a very interesting market, emerging market, I think. And I find the culture very attractive and exciting. And then, of course, we can think about Tokyo, Shanghai, and Seoul. But I think, the Hong Kong, Taiwan could be very interesting emerging market. And then also not just like, each country is like, introducing their own designers and fashion and culture to the rest of the world. But I think, the Asia as a whole, many Asian countries can work together and collaborate. This like Tin Designer is like a perfect example of that. So I think, as an Asian fashion industry and market, we work together and we can introduce like a younger designer to the rest of the world. That would be very interesting.
Okay, so I think we're going to go to the QR code, or we already have the questions. Okay. Okay, to this one's to Philip Sam. Okay, how do you think can young designers with limited resources build on the buzz of a successful show? And it says, can you also share your story and journey on how you built and developed your brand? I mean, the last part maybe you said a bit, but the former part, young designers with limited resources build on the buzz of a successful show.
Oh goodness, that's a complex question because in today's days of social media and the idea that you can actually carve out your own niche, I think my advice is to stay focused, to stay consistent, to stay within yourself, to deepen your language and your skill set and your acumen, and get to know your audience in a more personal level. I think in an environment, in a society that has access to all, sometimes too much is too much. Sometimes when we have too many options, we don't know what to choose anymore. And in an environment that it's about seasonality and pace and whatnot, you lose that chance. And I think earlier I was back there listening to one of the conversations. I think Judy was up here saying, you know, with that limited resources, where do you go first? Put yourself in markets that are bigger, so that whatever. And Judy, if you're here, I'm using your information right now, but you're spending the same amount of money. What's the reach that you want to go after? You know what I mean? And if you put yourself in an environment that has a larger reach, your chances are getting more with the same increases, right? But again, go back to right now, especially, I feel when I see this landscape, there's a deficit in skill. There's a deficit in actually point of view. There's a deficit in the next generation of talent. Everyone has an idea, but if you can't cement that and convert it into a business, it's just an idea. It's just like breathing. You know, you'll have another one, you have another one. And I think that, again, do your best to stay open to what's happening around you, embrace the technology, but also keep the other side rooted in craft, in skill set, in honing what you do best. Just celebrate that.
Thank you. And also, can you, if you have anything to add, can you share your story and journey on how you built and developed your brand?
You guys have 5 hours? Yes, so I'm the accidental designer. I never studied fashion. I'm a first-generation immigrant. My parents are Chinese descent, raised in California. Didn't know what I was gonna do because fashion didn't exist there. I'm giving you a fast version. Parents pushed me to live the dream, the American dream. Well, the Asian American dream, be a doctor, lawyer, business person. I'm like, okay, what's a business person? I know I couldn't do the other stuff because it was too defined. So I chose the business person, was third year into accounting class, like I couldn't even keep my checkbooks in check. So who the hell was I going to like account for people, right? Dropped out, went over to the department next door called Family and Consumer Sciences. And I went there because I saw mannequins in the window and sewing machines. And my mother, raising me, she worked as a seamstress in factories. Because in the end, when you come over, you give your whole life up, and that's all you can do. You're sequestered to just being that. So I learned the respect of the art of making clothes. And you know, to this day, I still have the pillow that she made me from a penny. You know what I mean? And it was so beautiful. It's like a couture pillow. You know what I mean? The whole thing's handcrafted. Fast forward, got my internship in fashion. 3 weeks into it, they hired me as an assistant. I didn't know what it was because I didn't study fashion, but I was good at just never giving up. I was good at, as we were speaking today, not being tired. You know, I was good at not having someone say to me, that's impossible. I was just good at just like making it happen. Met my business partner in Paris. Her name is Wen Zhao. She asked me to come to New York. We were friends. I was gonna just take her shopping to buy a black dress for a party. And then that was Friday. Monday, she convinced me to start a brand in New York, even though I had a life in LA. And she put me in her office that she cleared over the weekend. And she's like, oh, look, I rented an office for you, but it was hers. She just moved. So she guilt me because, she's also an immigrant, product of immigrants too. So, that runs deep in our blood, Asian guilt, right? So I was like, oh, how can I let you down? Stayed there. What do you want to call it? I don't know. I don't even know we were starting a business. What's your age? What's my age? We were both 31 years old, so hence 3-1 Phillip Lim. I thought it was clever. But when we started, people were like, is this a technology brand? This was like the beginning of the internet, I think. The internet. God, I'm so old. But I'm wiser, And she's like, what do you want to make? I don't know, but I think that we deserve more. I think that we deserve the best silks. I think that we should deserve wool that's from the best place. It comes from our culture, our Chinese ancestry. It should come from that. We should make clothes in China and be proud of that. And that's what we did. So, back in that day, it was like, oh, made in China, made in China. But, for us, it's like, yeah, it's made in our home. So it should be beautiful. So my first thing with the factory was like, I want you to make this t-shirt by hand. And they're like, what? Don't you want to just sew it up because you can make more money? I'm like, no, that was not the point. To her, it was a point, but to me, it was like to prove the idea that it doesn't matter where it's made, but it's made with heart. That's where things happen, And at the end of the day, electricity is the same everywhere, right? It's electricity. Sewing machine's the same everywhere. Skill is the same everywhere. But who has the bigger heart? And so we did it. We launched this t-shirt made by hand, and we made these t-shirts, rosettes everywhere, like literally made by hand. And people were like, a t-shirt made by hand with rosettes and all these embroideries, that was, wow, what are you trying to do here? And I remember that was like back then, it was like Barney's New York was there, and they gave us all the windows, and then the brand was made. The brand was born because it was from the heart. Yeah, short version.
Thank you for the beautiful side. I have to take this back to Tokyo and share it. Okay, so we still have some time for another question. So this is to Otsuka-san and maybe to me too, but how do you think, what strategy can Hong Kong designers employ to enter the Japanese market?
さっき言ったような、ファッションウィーク同士の連携というのがまず一番の必須かなと思ってまして、ファッションウィーク、お互いのこの才能のあるデザイナーをお互いのファッションウィークに呼ぶみたいなところからまず認知度を上げるっていうのが、香港のデザイナーが日本市場進出するのもそうですし、逆もまたしかりという気はします。
I think, they're actually working together between Japan and Hong Kong on a fashion week level. I think this collaboration is going to be a must. Meaning, for example, we can actually invite each other's a talented designer to, respective fashion week. I think that would be probably the gateway for the Hong Kong designer to come to Japan. Of course, vice versa is the truth.
もう実際にもうやってるとは思うんですけれども、メディアからしてもやっぱり海外のデザイナーが日本でやるっていうのは注目度が高くなるので、そういうのに期待したいなと思います。
And then also, I think, this is already, there are some cases like that. But I think, when the overseas designer come into Japan or the other way around, always media reports and I guess, create the buzz. So I think, that's another, valid way for the designers come into, the foreign designers coming into Japan.
Yeah, and recently we had Wilson Kaki do a fashion show in Tokyo. And those kind of things, Otsuka-san said that the journalists in Tokyo are very looking into it. And also, I think that if you want to enter the Japanese market, I think you will need an agency in Tokyo, like the Seiya Nakamura agency, or another sales agency, or the PR agency, because this is kind of the bad part of the Japanese fashion industry, but not only the Japanese fashion industry, but in Japan, but not many people can speak English, so you need to find a right agent that can communicate with you smoothly and then know the Japanese market. It's kind of totally different as the other market because wholesale prices, retail prices, it's different things. So if you really want to know the Japanese market, I think grab someone from Seiya Nakamura. I saw you guys there, and ask for them advices.
It's true. It's true.
Okay, so I think time's up, and thank you guys for having us. It was very fun.